This subject does keep me up at night, and I wish Tesla would clarify it a little bit more because for the longest time you guys have probably known what my prediction is. Giga Texas is building up construction insanely fast, and perhaps within the next couple months it'll be actually ready to start production of a Model Y. And this is a next generation Model Y with a structural pack, 4680 cells, new manufacturing techniques involved, so there's a lot of expectations that the Model Y coming from Texas is going to be substantially better than the Model Y coming out of Fremont, but they've already ramped up Fremont and now it's producing hundreds of thousands of Model Ys a year. So how are these two factories exactly going to coexist with each other? I don't know if Tesla can afford to just shut Fremont down once Giga Texas is fully ramped next year, and there's most certainly going to be a time where Giga Texas is doing limited production, low volume vehicles, whereas Fremont is doing high volume. So my thought process for the longest time is Giga Texas will start with the performance Model Y because that's a lower volume Tesla, and it could also use a huge range boost. So if they give it the 4680 batteries, you'll have an expensive Model Y, but one with the best performance, best acceleration, probably some better weight savings thanks to that structural pack. And then Fremont can just be doing long-range dual motor until Giga Texas ramps up. But then that, of course, has me thinking, what happens when Giga Texas is ramped up, probably sometime next year, and they're actually ready to do volume production, as in they're able to produce more than just the demand for the performance Model Y. Now they're perhaps ready to go to long-range production. How is Tesla going to differentiate between people who want a Model Y made in Texas, which is probably going to be way better, versus a Model Y made in Fremont? And I honestly do think about this subject probably way more than I actually should, but for a while there I was anticipating that maybe Tesla would bring back the standard range Model Y, and I still think there's a chance of that happening. I think it's bizarre that they took it away and they had it around for about a month, and I think the value there was tremendously good, but I keep reminding myself that the main reason Elon Musk said they got rid of the standard range Model Y was because it didn't reach their standard of excellence. And Elon has said time and time again that they have this moving goalpost with range, that they think it should be higher, and he thinks having a Model Y with a range below 250 miles is unacceptable and they need to be better than that. So what is Fremont gonna do with all of their Model Y assembly lines if Giga Texas is ramped up and pumping out a ton of them? Well, I guess the options are they can either scrap them entirely and overall have not an increased annual production capacity, or we go back to our roots and perhaps Tesla could introduce a model that we haven't talked about in a long time, the long-range rear-wheel drive Model Y, which they actually took reservations for right after the Model Y was originally unveiled, and they didn't get rid of them until like a month before deliveries began. There's actually a lot of sense to this concept, and I haven't seen that many people float this idea around, which is why I wanted to speculate on it today, because it actually makes a lot of sense the more I think about it. So we know Elon Musk doesn't like the standard range Model Y, okay? Because either it competes too much with the standard range plus Model 3, or he doesn't like the range being so low. So okay, they're not comfortable with having a lower priced Model Y. That kind of annoys me. I wish they would, but alright, Elon is set in his ways. So instead of, you know, retrofitting standard range Model 3 battery packs to go into the Model Y and having demand go through the roof by having a super cheap model, instead they start making single motor Model Ys out of Fremont and dual motor Model Ys out of Texas. I think this makes a lot of sense because the cheapest Model Y with the longest range is probably going to have an insane amount of demand, and right now in our current state Fremont is producing all of the Model Ys for North America. So if suddenly Fremont didn't have to worry about any dual motors, which means another part that gets to be dropped from the manufacturing process, that's more cost savings, added weight benefits, and they don't even have to build performance Model Ys out of Fremont anymore because that's all being handled by Texas. Now we could have a maybe slightly cheaper, not substantially cheaper Model Y, but one that still has a range far better than even the current Model Y they're selling with the 2170 cells and 2 motors. Elon alluded in these tweets in the past that when they got rid of the standard range Model Y, he said, no, we're actually working on a single motor Model Y that improves on affordability but still has amazing range. So I think Elon at least has clearly expressed interest in there being a cheaper Model Y that maybe doesn't have an all-wheel drive system but still has way better range, and that could result in perhaps a EPA estimated range of around 350 miles if your motors are using less power and the vehicle weighs less overall, but you're still rocking the same size battery pack. Plus, I'm sure by next year Panasonic is probably going to be able to increase the energy density on the 2170 cells. I think there's a possibility that the entry-level Model Y could be what Tesla originally thought it was going to be when they had the Model Y unveil at around $47,000. Except this time, of course, it includes autopilot. The range is way better. We're around 350 miles. But then, of course, the dual-motor long-range Model Y coming out of Texas maybe could stick to the original targeted price of around $51,000, but because of the structural pack, the 4680s, and a lot of the manufacturing efficiencies of single-piece castings coming out of Texas, this model could have range substantially higher than that, you know? If you apply a lot of the range benefits they talked about at Battery Day, they essentially were alluding that the dual-motor Model Y with all of this new technology could be looking at over 400 miles of range. So, for the longest time, I think the reason Fremont has decided to not make a single-motor long-range Model Y is because they know that one would likely outsell the dual-motor, and because it would be cheaper, the margins would not be as good, and why would Tesla lower the price on the Model Y when they can't even meet demand at its current pricing? So, I totally get why they haven't released it yet, but once they have two factories in the United States mass-producing the Model Y, maybe they'll have the production capacity to actually meet demand. So, sure, I think a lot of people are going to opt for the Fremont Model Y if it has 350 miles of range and it's only $47,000. Demand's going to be off the charts for that one, and if Fremont can just dedicate themselves to a single model, they might be able to catch up. But if there is a dual motor option that's only like $4,000 more, but you get a range over 400 miles, and of course, there's going to be a lot of us journalists and tech YouTubers talking about how this Texas-made Model Y is going to have 4680s, which are probably going to last a lot longer than 2170s. Plus, there will likely be a lot of reports about how the Texas Model Y has way better quality control. I'm pretty certain that demand will still be insanely high for that model, even if it's not the cheapest Model Y available. If people know that they're only $4,000 away from, you know, a 4680 Model Y that has over 400 miles of range, I think you could pretty evenly distribute the demand of North America between a lot of people just wanting single motor because they just want the most efficient EV possible, and they think 400 miles is a bit overkill, so they're just fine with saving as much money as they can. But then a ton of other people also saying, oh, that's really, really close to having astounding range. I'll just spend the extra money to get that. Plus, of course, all-wheel drive. It's good for the winter, better acceleration, and a lot of people love that dual motor feel that Teslas have. So this is just another example that I haven't seen floated around there for a while, and it's how I think Tesla might be able to please the boss with Elon Musk and make sure that pretty much all Model Ys have a range well over 300 miles while they're still improving on affordability. So the price is getting lower, and they have the production capacity to catch up with all this demand. And with that type of lineup, maybe even over time they're able to get the rear-wheel drive Model Y down to $45,000 or something. Then I think you're going to have even better sales than we currently have. And yeah, of course, Tesla's going to stay true to their word and make sure that the Model Y sells better than any other vehicle on Earth, probably within the next couple of years. With those prices and the Model Y feature set, it would not shock me. So, am I crazy? I know I think too much about this, but does my theory make sense to you guys? Or do you think it makes more sense to bring back the standard range Model Y, or just get rid of Model Y production at Fremont entirely? I'd love to hear your thoughts. Feel free to let me know. Thank you all for watching. Hope you have an excellent rest of your day. Take care.